Millions of people have trusted a website to care for their four-legged family members, but can you trust the care you receive from a sitter through Rover.com?
Two local women say they made a terrible mistake by using this site, and they want to warn others now. On your side's Christine Lazar is here now to explain.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have a lot of friends who have used Rover and have had great results, but I've also talked to people who have had their animals injured or neglected or even killed. So, you know, it feels like people really need to be aware that they're booking through a platform, right? Ultimately, it's a platform just like Uber. Uber's not really a taxi, right? It's a platform that drivers drive for. And it's kind of similar to Rover, you know? It's not a sitting service. It's a platform that sitters happen to be working through, if that makes sense. So nearly 6 years ago, I reported on a number of local pets who died in the care of a Rover sitter. And across the nation, there have been similar horror stories. All this time later, local pet parents tell me it's still happening, and they don't feel that the company has done enough to vet its sitters.
What happened to them and like where have they been?
A pet owner's worst nightmare. What was it like to hear that your dog may have just suffered while you were gone?
It was awful.
Having your dog die.
I couldn't say goodbye. I couldn't. I wasn't there for her.
Or go missing while you're hundreds, even thousands of miles away.
I just thought, like, what have I done?
Jamie Lynn's Story had used the pet sitting website Rover before. She trusted it and thought it was a safe way to hire care for her dogs, Josie and Snoop. But this time she knew something was wrong almost as soon as she and her boyfriend left to go out of town, when she says their 5-star rated sitter failed to send them photos as promised.
Obviously, whatever I was feeling intuitively, it was way worse than that.
When the couple arrived home from vacation, they say their sitter was nowhere to be found. She wasn't answering any communication in the app and didn't answer the door at the apartment in Santa Monica, where Story had dropped the dogs off 5 days earlier.
And I kept calling Rover over and over, trying to get a supervisor to call me.
Story says she didn't hear from a Rover supervisor until a full 24 hours had passed. That supervisor, she says, directed her to a more detailed profile in the app that had the sitter's address listed. And it wasn't the apartment in Santa Monica where she had dropped her dogs. Instead, it was an address on Barrington in West LA. And when the couple drove there, they found this empty lot.
Of course, my head started spinning even more then.
The next day, Story took to social media to plead for the return of her dogs, tagging the sitter and posting her photo. And within hours, she got a text from the sitter simply saying, "I lost my phone. I just got it back. The dogs are great." The sitter then asked if Story wanted to pick up Josie and Snoop. Story replied,
"Yes, like, I want my dogs. Please tell me where you are." And she was at this CD hotel, like right across the street from our house on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Story says the dogs did not have their leashes, food, or crates, and once in the car with them, Snoop appeared agitated.
He was crying and like whimpering the whole way home.
I think the biggest problem is that Rover, in my opinion, is a dangerous platform because it gives pet parents a false sense of security.
Animal rights attorney Jill Ryther has sued Rover on behalf of clients who claim their pets were injured or died in the care of Rover sitters.
People look to Rover as a reputable company, and I think they, in some sense, let their guard down when choosing to book with somebody through Rover, because you assume that a company like Rover is vetting the people that they're hosting.
On the front page of its website, Rover boasts Rover Protect, promising pet owners that sitters are screened and have passed a third-party background check. It really makes you feel like this is something you can trust.
In my opinion, if those were being adequately done, we would not see repeat cases. I am shocked that 17 years into this practice, we are still having cases against Rover for deaths, injuries, loss to pets.
In a statement to us, Rover said it will be refunding Story what she paid the sitter, who they say has now been banned from the platform. Rover also promised to cover any vet care that Snoop or Josie may need due to potential sitter neglect. The statement went on to say, "Our 24/7 trust and safety team is thoroughly investigating this unusual incident and will assist law enforcement to the full extent of our ability. We apologize for her challenges connecting with our support team, and we're working on improvements." Rover would not go into detail about how in-depth their background checks are or if they verify sitters' personal information like their address.
I just want justice for her. I want somebody to be held accountable.
Deem Truong hired a Rover sitter for her 2 huskies, Wolfgang and Misty. Like Story, she had used the service before and was satisfied. But in 2022, she believes she made a fatal mistake using Rover while she was visiting family on the East Coast. On the day she was set to fly home, Truong says the sitter called to say Misty was in distress. Truong describes what she saw over FaceTime.
She was laying on the floor. She wasn't moving. Her eyes were glassy. And I just knew she wasn't there anymore.
A necropsy, which is an animal autopsy, was inconclusive, but did note that Misty's stomach was empty and so was her bladder. Truong says Wolfgang showed signs of dehydration too, but recovered. She says the food she left with the sitter appeared untouched and the dog bowls were dented.
Another vet said that they were probably trying to get water and they were stressed, and so they must have been banging on their bowls.
Truong has since gotten another husky, but Rover has declined to pay for any of Misty's vet care because Truong says she paid the sitter off the platform at his request. But she feels Rover has a duty to better screen its sitters. She has now filed a lawsuit against Rover and the sitter.
Why are you speaking out? Because I hope that her story would help another pet parent not go through what I went through. If it could help in any small way, then her death wouldn't have been in vain.
Now, Rover would not go into detail about how their background checks work and why Story's sitter would be able to register with a bogus address. But they did say that 1.3 million stays have been booked by LA area pet parents, and 98% of those received 5-star reviews. So at the end of the day, I tell people you need to meet the sitters ahead of time. Go to the location where your animal is going to be staying, check it out, and obviously continue communication with them. In both of these cases, the pet parents tried, but they didn't get a lot of responses once they were out of town. That, of course, also being a red flag. So you really have to do your due diligence, obviously not putting any blame on them. They trusted the platform and the process. But if you are going to use it, and it is so popular, just really make sure to do your own homework as well.
Well, I think it's hard, too, because as someone who was a dog owner for a long time, you sometimes download these things in a moment of panic or emergency where you want to be able to get your dog some type of care. So you're not necessarily able to go through all of those steps.
Yeah, but if you do, you know, obviously that's a better safeguard than just kind of trusting it blindly.
So heartbreaking to be all the way on the other side of the country and not be able to get back.
I know.